I used to think that as long as you got more leads, more appointments, your business would run smoothly. Yet most businesses start every single week with a calendar full of appointments, only for about 50% of them to actually show up to the call. So I realized one of the biggest leaks in your marketing system is not what happens at the top, but rather at the bottom. It's what happens immediately after someone books a call, and most people just treat it as an afterthought. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact reason why your leads are not showing up to calls and the underlying solution to that problem that doesn't include you sending more reminders. So I want to start off with the math behind show up rates and why no-shows are so expensive for you. You obviously track your ad spend. And you also, obviously see how many booked calls you get. But then what most people do is that when they track how efficient their, marketing process is, they calculate their cost per call. But that's not what you should be doing, because that doesn't take your show up rate into consideration. What you actually need to see is that, yes, you have your same 8K ad spend. You get your 160 calls, but only 80 of them actually show up. So you need to be calculating your cost per showed up call, not cost per booked call. And as you see with the difference here, if you're only calculating your cost per call, then you would think that it costs you $50 to get someone to speak with you on the phone. But that's not the case. It actually costs you $100 if you have a 50% show up rate. This right here is 2x the difference. And if you're trying to calculate how efficient your ads are, if your ads are worth it, then you might have a completely different answer to that question if your cost per call is 50 or 100. That's a huge difference. And obviously most of you, your shop rates are above 50%, but still, if your shop rate is like 70%, your cost per, real showed up calls is still going to be a lot more than your cost per booked call. And most people, they don't track this. All your no-shows are literally ad spend thrown straight in the bin. It's straight up wasted ad spend. And the other negative thing about this, look at your calendar. Your calendar is filled up with booked calls, but half of them no-show. If you booked 6 calls, only 3 of them actually show up to speak with you. And here are 2 negative things. Well, obviously the first one that you prepped for the call, you blocked time out of your own calendar to speak to someone, and then they don't show up. So now you have wasted 1 hour of your own time or your closer's time. And you obviously know that. But the second thing that most people don't think about, your calendar is fully booked. That means that a new qualified lead that wanted to speak with you, they can't book a call because your calendar it's fully packed. It's fully booked. But in reality, you would have 3 slots here where you could speak to them. So the new qualified lead that wanted to speak with you, they can't. So there's a huge opportunity cost with having a lot of no-shows. But most people just think that the problem is, the reminders, that you're not reminding them enough. But the real underlying problem is that when your lead, when they booked a call, then they were at the peak of their intent. Then they actually were in the correct emotional state to buy from you because they saw a compelling ad, they saw your content. You had a great marketing, so they became interested, and that's why they booked a call, because they wanted to speak to you. But what you need to understand is that people's intent comes in these short spikes. People don't have, intent for a long period of time. As you see, it goes down. So if you're not doing anything about this, then people's intent, commitment will be as low as when they probably saw you for the first time. You have done all this hard work to get them excited to speak to you, and that's why they booked a call in the first place, but that's not the same state that they will show up to the call with. Once they show up to the call, they will have been retargeted by your competitors. They will have started second guessing why they booked a call in the first place. They will forgot why they were excited. They forgot what was so special about you or why they were interested. And then also, life gets in the way. The real reason why someone doesn't show up to your call is because they don't find your call valuable enough to prioritize it over other things in their life. They didn't find your call important. And because they didn't find the call important, they just forgot about it, or they just didn't care to show up. But the thing that you need to understand is that they did care in the beginning. That's why they booked the call. So the thing we need to do is we need to try to keep them interested in what we do until the call, so they care. Because if the call with you is their most important thing during the entire month, then they won't forget it, and then they will show up. But if they don't care, then they don't care, and then they won't show up. But what most people do is that they just try to send more reminders, and they are these very generic, Calendly, HubSpot reminders that, nobody fucking cares about. Because when you receive a generic reminder like you have a call tomorrow at 2 p.m., you feel like a fucking number to their business. You feel like they don't care about you at all. Like when you book a call at your dentist and they send they will send you a reminder, a text like your dentist appointment is at 2 p.m. And you feel like they don't care about you at all. Because people aren't stupid anymore. Everyone knows that these reminders are fully automated and that you haven't put in any effort. If you don't care about people, if you don't care about your leads showing up to calls, then they won't care either. And again, if they don't care, they won't show up. But if you show that you actually give a fuck, that you care about them showing up to the call, then they will also care and show up. So we can't be sending these generic automated reminders anymore. That doesn't work. We need to be putting in some more effort. And another approach that I see so many businesses doing is that they try to implement some double booking system where they let two people book the same time slot, and if they have a 50% show up rate, then the likelihood that one of them no shows is very high, so then they only have one call. But the thing is that a double booking system is very, very, very hard to pull off. And what do you do if both of them then show up? And then what most founders do is that they get the setter to run the second call. But if you get your setters now on sales calls, you're taking them away from their job of actually booking you more calls. So you're just screwing everything up. Instead, you should just solve the root problem, get your show up rates from like 50% up to 85% where they should be, and accept that some people will no-show. You will get like 10 to 15% of people to no-show. That's just reality. But your show-up rates shouldn't be 50%, and you shouldn't be implementing these way too complicated, systems. Just solve the root problem. And there are 9 things that are actually killing your show-up rates, and none of them are how many reminders you're sending them. The first problem is that you let unqualified people book a call. And the reason why that's such a huge thing is that if you only let the qualified people book a call, then I bet that your show up rate would be great. Because this might be the case. It might be that your show up rate is 60%. But if most of your calls are with unqualified people, well, the unqualified ones maybe have a 40% show up rate, but the qualified ones have a 95% show up rate. But this 60% is just the blended average between the unqualified ones and the qualified ones. So what you need to do, you need to start tracking your booked to close rate for different types of leads or different quality leads. So your most unqualified ones, they usually have a very, very low book to close rate. And book to close rate, it takes both your show up rate and your close rate into consideration. So this is a combined metric of your show up rate and your close rate. The most unqualified ones, they have like a 3% book to close rate. So they are not worth your time at all. You should never let them book a call in the first place, because they will just clog your calendar and block these higher quality ones of actually booking a call. If you calculate these numbers, if you do your analysis, you will find that you have some type of leads or prospects that are very, very likely to show up and are very likely to close. If you find a segment of your audience, of your market, that has a 15% book to close rate, then you should be prioritizing these ones. You should only let these book a call. Or what you should be doing is that you should create tiers. So tier 1s, they get like 7 slots per day. Then you have a tier 2, they get like 3 time slots per day. But then the unqualified ones, you don't let them book a call in the first place. So just the underlying thing here is that you need to understand that you think your show up rate is low because your reminder system is broken. But for some of you, the problem is just that you're letting unqualified people book a call. Your booking system may be amazing and actually very good and functional, but the only reason your show up rates are low is because these unqualified people are there. Your qualified ones, they do show up at a great percentage because your system is so good. Then the second problem is that you have too little friction in your booking process. So this ties back to the last one. It's pretty much the same thing, but if you have more friction, you will be getting more calls. Because if you have too little friction, then you will have, a lower cost per booked call, obviously. You will have lots of bookings, but you will have a flood of unqualified bookings, and you will have a 50% no-show. But if you have more friction, well then you will obviously have a higher cost per booked call. So this ties back to the first thing with math. Most people optimize for lower cost per booked call. So they try to get like a $50 cost per booked call. They try to just lower it as much as possible. But what I'm telling you is that you should add more friction, accept that your cost per booked call may go to like $100, but you will have obviously then fewer bookings, but they will be of much higher quality. You will have a much higher show up rate, and you will have a much higher close rate. So yes, your cost per booked call will go up, but your cost per acquisition, your cost to get a client, will actually go down. And the reason is because your show up rate will go up, your close rate will go up, your cash collected in the first call will go up, your paid in full rate will go up, and your sales cycle will shorten. if you add more friction, it may seem at first that it's negative, but actually it's only positive. Then the third problem is that your leads, after they book a call, they have no commitment. They have no like skin in the game. After they book a call, if they don't confirm that they will show up, if they don't specifically tell you, yes, I will show up, then their likelihood of showing up to the call is actually very, very low. You need your leads to actually commit to showing up to the call. And the way you need to do this is you need to ask everyone who books a call to write you a message that says, yes, I will show up to the call. Because there's been studies that if someone confirms their call by saying yes, they have a 95% chance of showing up to the call. But if someone doesn't confirm the call, if they don't commit at all, then the show up rate is around 50%. That's because they have no commitment. Because it's so easy for you to just go, on Calendly, book a call and just, forget it. But if you have to go write yes to the person you will be speaking to, that yes, I will show up. You don't want to lie. Because if you tell someone I will show up, people don't like to go against their own word. That's not what people do. But if you just click on the button on a Calendly booking form, then you don't feel as entitled to show up to the call. Then the fourth thing is that you have no warming up. And this right here ties right back to this graph that I showed you. So, when they book a call, then they are at the top, they are the right emotional state to actually buy with you. But after they book a call, they cool off. Nothing in your pre-call system is trying to keep them warm. It's trying to keep them at the correct emotional state. Because you need to keep, selling them. Because the lead needs to think that your call is the most important thing that has happened in the entire month. If they don't think your call is important, they will not show up. So you need to keep selling them and reminding them that the call is very important. And you can't just do that by telling them it's important. They need to feel it themselves. Then the fifth thing is that you have built no personal connection with them before the call. And this ties back to these generic reminders. So instead of sending those very generic reminders, you need to actually build a real personal connection with them, because people buy from people. So instead of, automated Calendly reminders, you need to, as the founder, take your phone, record a selfie video saying, thanks for booking a call, I'm so excited to speak with you. You need to literally take time out of your day and record a personalized video for every single lead that books a call. And you may think, well, I don't have time for that. But that takes 30 seconds out of your day per video, but that may increase your show up rates, I kid you not, with like 15%, and that will also increase your close rates because you have built a real human personal connection before the calls. So your sales calls will also become much easier. And the second thing you want to do is that after they reply yes, if you do this correctly, you want to have a chat with them. You want to keep that conversation going. You want to ask some of your discovery questions and just get to know them. Because if the lead realizes that you actually care about them, that you give a fuck, then they will care and then they will show up. If they see that you have put some time in for them, that they are not just a number for your business, then they will like you so much more, they will know you and they will trust you, and therefore they show up and close at higher rates. The sixth thing is that if they have no real clarity about what you do, how your process works, why it works, and how you're different to all the other competitors in the market, then their likelihood of showing up and actually then closing on the call is so much lower. Because just think about it. Yes, you maybe booked a call because the marketing seemed interesting and the marketing was very persuasive. But if you still don't have real clarity about what you're getting yourself into, if you don't know what the call will be about or what you will talk about or what you're going to be buying, then your likelihood of showing up is not that high because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. But if you have real clarity about this is exactly what I'm getting myself into, this is exactly what I would be able to buy, this is what they do, this is how it works, this is why it works, and this is why they're different, then you're so much more likely to show up because you actually understand and you know what will happen. You know if it will be a benefit to you. And then the seventh thing is that they haven't spent enough time with you to actually trust you. So Google actually came up with a study that it requires around 7 hours of exposure, around 11 touch points in 4 different locations to turn a stranger into a client. And if you now think for yourself, how much time does a lead actually spend with you before they get on the phone? And your answer is probably not that much. They probably watched, a short ad. If you have a VSL, they probably watched that and then they completed your qualification form. So for some of you, they have only spent 3 to 5 minutes with you. And for some others, it may be 20 minutes. But this is not enough, time to build a real, relationship with someone. And a 20-minute relationship can't close a 5K offer. That doesn't happen. If you want to close a real high-ticket offer, a 5K program, then you need at least a 3-hour relationship with them. And I know in today's economy, it's so hard to get someone to spend 7 hours with you. That's like nearly impossible because there's so many things for people to do these days that if they spend 7 hours with you, you have done something special and they are going to be very easy to close. But because we can't get them to spend so much time with us, we need to make sure that they actually watch the right assets. Because if we can only get them to spend like 2 hours with us, then we need to make sure that they actually consume the right assets, that the 2 hours they spend with us are in the correct place. So we need to create these strategic assets, we need to create the right videos, and then we need to force them to watch those videos instead of them going to watch, a random video from your channel that doesn't accomplish anything. And then the eighth thing is that cold leads always behave like cold leads. So this again ties back to pretty many things that I've talked about already. All the time, your cold leads, even if they are qualified, I'm not talking about unqualified ones here. I'm talking about qualified prospects, qualified leads that you could work with, but they are cold. They still don't know, like, and trust you. They will always have a lower sharp rate because they don't know, like, and trust you. They will have so many questions. They will barely know what to do. They will have heavy objections. You will need 2 or 3 calls to actually close them, and their price sensitivity is very high. So your close rate will be around like 10 or 15%. But you all know that warm inbound leads they get from like YouTube or referrals, they are always so much more likely to show up to calls. They only have a few questions. They know exactly what you do. They have minimal objections. You can close them in one call. Their price sensitivity is low and their close rate is very high. You all know that warm inbound leads are so much better. They're so much more likely to close and they're so much easier to work with. You all love the warm inbound leads. But the thing is that it's quite hard to get warm inbound leads. You don't get so many of them. Most of the leads, most of the bookings that you get, they're going to be cold ones that you get from like paid ads, for example. So the dream would obviously be to get your leads from from like cold ads because you will get so many from there, but then turning those cold leads, cold bookings into warm ones. If you can get the cold ones to behave like warm inbound ones, then you have cracked the code because then you can get the volume from cold bookings, but you can get the behavior from warm inbound ones. And that's the dream. And that's the job of your pre-call system. The pre-call system needs to turn these cold bookings into warm bookings. So if you can achieve that, then your shop rates will go up by a lot and your sales calls will be so much easier and your close rate will just, skyrocket. And then the ninth and last thing is that people can book way too far into the future. So the thing is that you should never let someone book more than 3 days out into the future. And the reason is that if you let someone book like, let's say 2 weeks out or like even 1 week out, the likelihood that they show up is very low because the likelihood that they forget about your call is so high. People have so much going on these days. They have so many things that they are thinking about that they won't remember your call if they booked it 2 weeks ago. Like, that's impossible. And also, again, when you have the emotional state, your marketing has got them to the peak right here. If the call is like 1 week out, do you know how hard it is to keep them at the right emotional state for like 1 week? But if you let them only book a call 3 days out, even if you don't do anything, they will be pretty warm. Their intent will be high, even if you haven't done anything. And if they booked a call 3 days ago, they will also remember it. So what you need to do with your calendar is that you literally force people to book tomorrow, 2 days out, or 3 days out into the future. You should never allow someone to book a call more than 3 days out because otherwise your shop rate will just go through the toilet. Because you all know if someone books the same day, their shop rate is going to be the highest. If they book the second day, then the shop rate will also be high. But the further they can book into the future, the lower their shop rate will be. So again, a maximum of 3 days out, because otherwise nothing will work that I've talked about in this video. But now some of you may be thinking that, well, I have the pre-call assets, I have the videos for people to watch, I have the personalized reminders, but nobody actually consumes any of it. Nobody watches any of my videos that I have for them. And obviously, if no one watches your pre-call assets, then they are completely useless. It's the same as you wouldn't have them in the first place. So we actually need to engineer, we need to build the pre-call system in a way where we prioritize consumption over anything else. Because as I already told you, it's very hard to get someone to consume 7 hours of content, in today's economy, but you can very easily get someone to consume 2 hours. So we need to make sure they actually consume the right assets, and we need to actually make them watch the assets, because if we don't guide them to watch the right videos, the likelihood that they will do it is very low. So one of the biggest reasons why someone doesn't, watch your pre-call assets is because they are positioned like homework. They are salesy and they are buried in a confirmation email. You're not making it easy to them. And another thing why someone doesn't consume it is because you have just way too much stuff. Because if you have, your thank you page, and if you have on your thank you page like 15 plus videos, well, after people book a call and they land on your thank you page, they will be overwhelmed. Think about it. You're booking a call, you're redirected to thank you page, and then you just see 15 different videos to do, and they're telling you if you don't watch the videos, you're never going to have a chance to book a call again. They're threatening you to watch the videos. Well, obviously, you will be overwhelmed and you won't watch the videos. If you have too much stuff, then people won't consume anything. So we need to again do this strategically. We need to have the right assets, not too much, put in the right places, and we need to guide them to consume it. We need to engineer it around consumption. We need to have one key asset before the call that they should watch, and we should make it impossible to ignore. Everything needs to guide them to go watch that one strategic asset. We shouldn't have 50 videos. We should have one video that's very important and force everyone to go watch it from all different places. And the last thing that I want to touch upon in this video is that you should flip the selling before the call. So what most people think is that they leave the selling for the sales call. They think that, well, I'll just handle it on there. But if you can handle most of the objections, if you can answer most of the questions before the call, well, your sales calls will become much easier and your close rate will increase. But also, if they are sold before the call, again, if you keep selling them before the call, then they're so much more likely to actually show up to the call because they are in the correct emotional state because you kept selling them. So most people do 20% of the selling, 20% of the trust building before the call, and 80% on the call itself. And your sales calls become so much harder than they should be. And the thing that you need to understand is that if you do it this way, then you have to always keep making it work. Because if you have a bad day, if you're bad on one sales call, then you won't close them because they are only 20% sold. But if you flip it, if you do 80% of the selling in marketing, then because your marketing, it works 24/7. It's all the time there. So even if you have a bad day, even if you're like best closer or quits, you will still be able to close people because you only have to do 20% of the selling on the call. 80% is done before it. And if they are sold, then they will show up to the call because then the call will feel very important for them. And if it's important, they won't want to miss it. And this is how you can get your show up rates to the target 75% or even higher to like 90%. But if you're like at 50%, then people don't feel that your call is that important. They don't see the value of showing up. So if you can make it feel more important, you will get many more to actually show up. But now, if you want to see the exact booking system, the exact pre-call system that you need to have in place before the call to actually achieve everything that I talked about in this video, I've created another video exactly about that. I believe the video is called like how to engineer a pre-call system, something like that. I will link that video in the description below, so go and watch that after this one. But if you right now have any more questions, I will also put my Instagram in the description below, so feel free to shoot me a DM and I will be more than happy to help you out. See you in the next one.